Good morning again. Source 2, we're looking at internment in Canada. Give you a few seconds to study, in this case, a propaganda poster. Okay, so the first thing that I'll point out is this is a piece of propaganda. The intent is indoctrination. The intent is the government is trying to get people to think something. They're trying to sway public opinion so they can further along their policy. So usually, well, always when you look at propaganda, there's not going to be a hidden message. So quite often when we study a cartoon, there's often going to be irony or satire, saying one thing yet meaning another, but you're not going to find that in propaganda. What you see is what they want you to see. There's no ironic, satirical message behind it. And so if we take a closer look at this piece of propaganda, the first thing that stood out to me was the word menace. They menace Canada on both coasts. So they menace Canada on the west coast, the Pacific, they menace Canada on the east, the Atlantic. And then if we go a little closer, we can see that on the east coast, you've got the Nazi representing Germany, and over on the left, you've got the Japanese insignia representing Japan. So this has to be happening during World War II. That's usually when you see propaganda posters is during a time of conflict. And then, of course, they're referring to Canada. I find it interesting the way they've kind of dehumanized, or at the very least made threatening, the two characters in the propaganda. So if you look at the hands, they are depicted more as claws. So they're depicting them perhaps something not quite human, but at the very least they're threatening, they're imposing their facial expressions, the fact that they've got claws for hands, and usually when you claw at something, you're grabbing for it, you're trying to take it, or when you claw at something, you're attacking it, you're trying to hurt it. And that probably works in both cases for this cartoon. The Canadian government is saying, listen, we've got enemies on either side. They're on the verge of attacking Canada. They're on the verge of taking Canada for themselves. So the intent is the government is trying to invoke a bit of fear in the Canadian population, and they're trying to make the population scared to maybe kickstart them into action, maybe to recruit people to join the military more, maybe to get people to work harder to help the Canadian war effort, or at least in the case of Japan, maybe this helps them pass along the policy of internment. After all, in a democracy, if you don't give the people what they want, they won't vote for you again. And so usually when the government passes a big piece of legislation or policy, they've had to try and sell it to the public first, or the public's going to say no and vote them out of power. And so you're seeing on the propaganda poster fear mongering by the government so they can go ahead with the internment legislation of, in this case, the Japanese Canadians on the West Coast. And you might mention quickly, too, in your interpretation that it's also reminiscent of the internment of the Ukrainian Canadians during World War I in the western provinces. That would be fine if you mentioned that. And so you're going to finish off this interpretation by saying this will culminate with government policy and legislation of the internment of the Japanese Canadians. And you talk about when that happened, 1942. You talk about the fact that it happens to thousands of Japanese Canadians. You would talk about how there was already um, prejudice sentiment on the West Coast, and it wasn't that hard a thing for the government to do. You might mention they confiscated their property. You talk about how the fact that the men went to one camp and the women went to another camp and they were labor camps. You would talk about all those things as part of your interpretation. And you might say that, since this has come and gone, the government has since apologized and there's been some financial restitution too for the people that were victimized by it. In terms of the links, well, for sure, we're seeing ethnocentrism in action. We're seeing indoctrination. Anytime there's propaganda, there's going to be indoctrination. That is the end goal of propaganda, indoctrination. And you would for sure talk about this as an example of ultranationalism in Canada. Absolutely. And then when we think about perspective, well, again, propaganda does not use satire and irony. So you're getting a full blown embracement of nationalism, of even ultranationalism on that piece of propaganda. The government is trying to get people to support the policy of internment, um, in this case on the West Coast. I can't think of much else you'd want to do with that source. I think we've pretty much covered it all. If I've missed anything, please email me because I'm sure that I have. You're way smarter than I am. So hope you're keeping up with the sources. Again, we're building skills for next year when you actually write the diploma. But this is how you learn social studies. I mean, yes, social studies it's about facts, figures, and people from history, but more importantly, it's about the application of those facts, figures, and people from history, and that's what we do every day when we examine a source. Um, nice job.